regarding the workshop. Mr. Bullock, I'd like to turn the workshop over to you at this time.
Great, thank you, President Gross. Before we turn it over to we have two presenters that are going to go over the rate workshop, there's a couple things I would like to say in advance before we hear from our two presenters. As it relates to how we charge for our electric rates, I think there are two fundamental elements, and it's a fuel cost and our non-fuel cost. Fuel cost is just what it says. It's the cost associated or for OUC to purchase the necessary fuels that we need, in addition to the transportation that's needed to transport the fuels that we buy from others to make electricity. Fuel cost. All the other costs that are needed to ultimately generate, deliver, bill, etc. for our customers is called non-fuel. Today, we are only focused on our fuel cost. There is no discussion on non-fuel rates changing. It is only focused on our fuel cost, the fuel that we need to make electricity. I think there's a couple other points that are important to highlight. Fuel cost is a direct pass-through, meaning every dollar that we spend for our fuel is charged back to our customer. There is no return built into that. Fuel cost, again, is a straight pass-through for our customers. Back in 2021, we actually had a fuel decrease. The cost of fuel was less, therefore we lowered the rate to our customers. This recommendation here today is related to the costs that we have seen an increase due to the economic events that are occurring, the supply chain constraints that are occurring, the event, Russia and Ukraine, that's occurring. It's all impacted our fuel costs. We certainly hope at some point in time, as the fuel market moderates, comes back around, we'll see a reduction in our fuel rates. But today, again, we are only discussing fuel. I think it's important to also recognize, in comparison to peers that OUC compares ourselves to and evaluates ourselves to, one, we're not the only utility facing this challenge, right? The fuel is an industry issue. But in comparison, on average, OUC's impact is lower, a rate comparison to our other peers. And I think that's a really important point to make during these challenging times. I think the other thing, too, is a reminder to all that there's no action being taken today by the board. The board will just be hearing about this through a workshop. The board would then come back next month to vote on it, and then ultimately we would see a June effective date. So there's some time here from a planning standpoint for our customers, and we want to use that time to continue to encourage conservation, which we are about here at OUC. And we've continued to encourage programs and efficiency for our customers to help lower bills, and you'll hear Luz talk more about that. But one in particular that I think is really important to this conversation is our Power Pass program, and basically it's prepaid service. And on average, the customers that participate in that program save, on average, 8 to 10%. So it's a program that's very beneficial. It sends price signals, it sends information to consumers, and it's a prepaid service. Some of it are like how you pay for gas in your vehicles. And you buy gas and you buy a certain amount and you put that gas in your tank and you use it till it's out. And so on average, when consumers have better awareness of their usage and their cost, on average we have seen customers use less. That program is available to our customers. There is a zero cost to sign up for that program. And so we want to continue to encourage customers to conserve and prepare. And again, you'll hear Luz talk about that. So again, those are just a few points that I want to make to minimize any confusion out in the community or for our customers or in the media and are related to what is going on. It is fuel only. It is not non-fuel that's being discussed. Fuel is a pass-through. Our cost is what our customers pay. And we've got a little bit of time here before those things come effective. So I'm going to step aside and I'm going to ask Gina Johnson, our Director of Financial Planning and Strategic Sourcing. She's going to start the presentation here today, and Lou Zavilas, our Vice President of Customer Service, will follow up and talk about a variety of our conservation programs. So with that, Gina, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, President Gross, Commissioner Mills, Mayor, and Clint. Thanks for teeing that up. I'm going to just reiterate basically what Clint has shared, just giving you a little bit more color. I am going to, Francis, if you'll go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about the fuel change first, and then we have 3 other changes that we are proposing that are outside of the traditional charge for utility service. I'm sorry?
A little more volume.
Oh, sorry.
Or maybe bring the mic down.
I can speak up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm having difficulty hearing.
Okay. Is that better?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Lean right in.
Thank you. So over the last year, we have shared with you continuously about the supply chain issues that we have been facing, and they relate to labor resourcing, but also cost of goods and services. The 2 traditional fuel sources that we do use have not been exempt from that impact. As you can see by this chart here on the right of the slide, our 2020 cost per MMBTU was just at $2.41, and we have increased up to $3.17 now in 2022. It has nearly doubled on the market to $4.75. And that fuel cost is very volatile. It can change from day to day. We've been close to the high $5, almost $6 several times over the course of the last year. To help mitigate these costs, we have employed several risk management strategies. We enter into long-term purchase agreements, as well as hedging for our natural gas. This falls under the Audit Finance approved energy risk management plan for us to do so. Our operations also is very prudent about how they are dispatching our generation facilities to ensure that we are maximizing those natural fuel sources so that we minimize our cost, as well as be ready for any high load factor needs or emergency energy needs that we have. Francis, if you'll turn to the next slide. As Clint shared, these aren't unique to OUC. Many of our peers are seeing, or all of our peers are actually seeing the same impact. Over the last year, the peer average has increased $13 to $127 for the 1,000 kWh residential customer. In January, we did increase the fuel charge $2.50, and this increase has proven to be insufficient as a result of the continued fuel cost volatility. As he shared, I just want to reiterate again that our fuel charge to our customer is a pass-through. We do not aim to earn profit. Fuel revenues net of expenses do not fall to the bottom line to earn a return. Over the last year, we have used stabilization funds to help mitigate those costs. We've used almost $90 million. And so by the end of May, we are expected to materially deplete our fuel stabilization reserves. So with not seeing any end or a decline in this fuel cost, we are asking you to consider a $12 increase for the 1,000 kWh customer, raising their price from $112 per month to a bill of $124 per month.
Before you go on, could you just give us a little history on the stabilization fund? I got a briefing on that in my regular briefing, and I think it's just
on how it works, or
well, how high it's been, how fast we've spent it down,
Yeah, so.
where it would be if we continued on the same track.
Okay, so we were actually over $100 million. 2017, I believe, we looked at what the impact was going to be to bring on the Clean Power Plan. And so the board did approve for us to separate out a portion of those funds to help mitigate the Clean Power Plan impacts that we were going to put into place to move us to being meeting our 2030 and 2050 goals. As a result of the EIRP and some changes in how we're going to achieve those goals, we're able to move those funds back to help on the fuel stabilization component. So again, in the last year, we have spent $90 million just to mitigate the fuel cost increases compared to what we are charging our customers.
And if we continue on the same track?
We will go negative. Yes, we will have a negative fuel stabilization reserve, which will need to be rebuilt. We have a target that is approved by the Audit Finance Committee of maintaining around $50 million in that fund to help one of our core goals, which I'll talk about a little later, but is to maintain price stability for our customers. And so we use that fund to mitigate these things for a short term, but this has been going on for over a year now, and it's just not sustainable at the volatility that we're seeing. No worries. So again, it's $12 for that comparative 1,000 kWh customer, but a majority of our customers will see between a $5 and $15 per month increase in their monthly charge. Okay. So here's kind of where I was going, that, you know, we want to deliver value to our customers, and we want to make sure that we're passing back savings when we experience them. But at this time, if you look at the chart, over the past 13 years, you'll see that for the majority of the time, we have been decreasing that cost that we're charging to our customers. We've gone now with this proposed increase. Our nominal dollar change will only be $4 from that we were charging them in 2009. If I inflation adjust those current dollars back to 2009, the customers, for what their money is worth today, are actually being charged $29 less from a comparative standpoint. Excuse me. These charges are going to be considered affordable as we look at the Fitch benchmarking that is out there. The $124 is just over 2% of what Alice defines as the average annual household income. And so that, according to the benchmark, is considered affordable. If you go to that's all I have on that one, unless you would like to discuss more. But you'll see that the percentage of fuel, we were giving those back when we were enjoying very, very historic low fuel cost through the 2009 through 2019 period. We were returning those fuel savings back to our customer and lowering the fuel rate. And you'll see that as exampled by the percentage of the overall bill and the total overall bill decline. Okay, that's all I have on that one. I would like to talk to you about 3 other non-utility service type, the traditional usage of electricity. So if you'll go to the next slide, Francis. So we would like to ask for the addition of a new pricing structure for renewable energy systems that are placed on our grid. Excuse me. We will be following a 3-tiered structure here that is approved by the PSC. There are several utilities across the state of Florida that are already following this 3-tiered structure. And the pricing that we have identified here as the costs to the customer is based off of our traditional cost recovery. The less than 10 kW will be charged no cost, And if we look at historically, those customers that we have signed up and have attached to our grid within renewable system, that is just under 55% of what has historically been added to our system. An example of that is a 1,200, on average, 1,200 kWh customer would probably be purchasing something of this size. And then the second tier is a 10 to 100 kW system, and that will be at $340. It's a one-time, I forgot to mention, it is a one-time application fee charged at the beginning. And then about 40% is in that group, just over 40% historically is in that category. And then the 100 over 100 kWh is going to be more like a premise that a commercial customer has that is putting a large renewable system in place. In addition to the three-tiered pricing structure, we are asking to make some modifications to the current tariff to include general liability and property insurance at certain levels. So the 10 to 100 kW customer will hold a $1 million policy, and the top tier over 100 kW will have a $2 million policy. Again, those are in alignment with that prescribed by the PSC. Francis, if you'll go to the next slide, please. So the sunsetting of the reconnection fee is a good news story. We are right now charging a surcharge for reconnection services that are completed between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. But due to technology enhancements, we are able to have savings there that we want to pass back to the customer. So all reconnections will be charged the same fee. So the $20 or $50 adder, depending on where the actual reconnection is located, will no longer exist if this is approved. And then lastly, what we want to do is offer to our commercial customers a partnership. They are required by jurisdictional precedent to actually install backflow devices on their water systems. And they are free to go out and hire a third-party installer to do this work, but we want to help them to get this work done by facilitating that with them. The fee will be a charge to them for the backflow device, the installation, and then a $340 fee to help them get that done. The price will be charged to them through their bill over a 12-month period. Francis, if you go to the next slide. So all of the changes that I just went over with you are in a red line version of the tariffs that I believe was with your packages. These will be provided to the PSC for their review. They do not approve our rates. That is the board's responsibility for our organization. What they do review is that we are equitably charging our customers so that the commercial customer and residential customer are charged for the items that relate to the service that we're providing them. And then they make sure that we stay in alignment with our pricing structure. We will be bringing back to you all in May as part of a new business agenda item, the approval of these items for you to consider and approve. The implementation is going to be a June 1st date. But before that happens, we will make sure that we have a communication plan in place that will allow us to talk to the customers and let them know what's going on and provide them with alternatives that they can use to possibly mitigate a piece of this. But Luz will talk about that in her section right behind me. So I don't know if you all have questions now. I'm happy to entertain them, or I will be here that Luz can continue on and then I can step back up.
Questions?
Nope.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Good afternoon, Commissioners, President Gross, Mayor Dyer, and Clint. So we want to continue creating awareness for our customers through the channels they're used to receiving information from us on. Certainly the media has played this information out this week and informed our customers of the rate changes. but it's important that we deliver information through our various channels, starting with targeted outreach for specific customers. So for example, Gina just talked about our commercial backflow. Our residential customers won't receive that information. We're going to make sure the right message gets to the right customer regarding our pricing changes. We also are going to send broad outreach to our customers with this information. This is going to include bill inserts, digital channels like social media, and certainly we will leverage our community partnerships to get the information about the pricing changes. Also our city and county partners and our state partners so they can educate their constituents with the information as well. It'll include the pricing changes and will include ways to save information, offering assistance to our customers, assistance programs that are available, and ways that they can save on their bill. Next slide, please. We just launched a conservation marketing campaign on April 8th. Maybe you've seen some of these ads already. I know I have, going down I-4. We are targeting residential customers through this marketing campaign, and it includes also letting them know about our Power Pass customers, that it's a program available to homeowners and renters alike. Messages will be communicated to our customers, again, through mixed media channels. So we'll include digital billboards, social media, radio, and online advertising. These messages will also be available in Spanish. This will be shared through our OUC e-newsletter, our Connections newsletter, OUC's blog. Again, the familiar channels our customers are used to receiving information through. We will have a dedicated landing page with this information, ouc.com/ways to save, where customers can see program information, they can get rebate information, and tools that can help them save money in a way that is meaningful to them. There will be information of low cost, no cost programs, and those that may require an investment on their behalf. Additionally, the landing page is going to be shareable, so they can send it to a friend that may need the information, or if they're a renter, they can send it to their landlord that'll hopefully invest in property upgrades. The campaign will run through the summer, and as hot weather arrives, we'll make sure to weave those savings tip to our customers. We are still working through our energy efficiency optimization study. Commissioners, you may remember I came in August and talked about that study we were doing. It includes feedback on our program design and how we're going to improve our stakeholder engagement. It's not completed. Once that gets finalized, we're going to act on those recommendations and include them in our campaigns. Next slide, please. And then certainly we want to make sure our customers know there's assistance available to them in various different ways. A priority for us is that customers know there's something to meet their individual need, because not every customer is alike, not every customer is in the same situation. So we have various ways we want to talk through our customers and inform them on. Customers can go to our website and get great tips, apply for rebates, or take our free home survey online. It's quick, it's accurate, they'll get efficiency recommendations that they can implement that really make a difference on their monthly bill. And also our dedicated auditors are available to go to their home and do a free in-person session with the customer. Customers can also contact us for pay plans or payment arrangements. I know you guys heard us talk a lot about those during our COVID assistance programs, but we still have many options available like that. And other programs like budget billing to help them get a levelized cost every month. And again, Power Pass. Basically, we'll find a program that meets their needs and helps them get through this situation, to these price changes. I do want to highlight Power Pass again, as Clint was mentioning at the beginning. It's our prepaid program where customers can look at their usage online daily if they want to and deposit funds as they need. It's a program available to homeowners, renters, and small business customers as well. They do not incur late fees on this program, and they're not required to have a deposit when they transition to the program. We also have Efficiency Delivered. It's an important program for our customers and for us. It offers up to $2,500 of efficiency measures and upgrades in the customer's home. These opportunities are identified through a conservation specialist performing an audit at the home, and then one of our preferred contractor implements those measures, and the customer pays back 20% of the cost on their bill with no interest. Of course, customers can call 211 for information about financial assistance, so more immediate financial assistance. Project CARE is our partnership with United Way, as you're very well informed of, but it provides up to $500 per year in emergency relief for our utility bills, for customers' utilities bills. And there's other customer programs available. So, there's eHeap available to senior citizens, there's LIHEAP available to low-income customers, and there's many other organizations that we can inform our customers about through our call center or the customer calling 211. Certainly there's lots of information available and there's lots of programs we can partner our customers with and ways to save. So that's what we're here for. Our customer service team will be available, and our website has plenty of information customers can access themselves to help them with these price changes. So with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions, and Gina is still here as well.
I just want to confirm something I thought I heard earlier, that on that Power Pass program, because I think this is related a lot to the pricing workshop we're having today on fuel costs, folks that enroll, our experience is that folks enroll in this prepaid Power Pass program typically save 8 to 10%. Did I hear that right?
You did.
On average every month. So typically that's a way to offset any kind of increase they might be seeing here in the near future.
Yes, President Gross, with Power Pass, I think the biggest difference is the customers are more conscious of their usage and they're paying attention. And so when the funds run out, their services get turned off, and it's immediate. So I think that's what causes that behavior, to pay attention and really control your costs, because you want those dollars to stretch further.
Great. It's really good. Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so it looks like we don't have any members of the public that wish to speak at this time.
That's correct.
So we'll just move right through the agenda. So again, one last time, any additional comments or questions from the commissioners? No. About anything you heard this morning or this afternoon? If there's no further business, is there a motion to adjourn the pricing workshop?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you, Commissioner Calvet. Anyone opposed? No? All right, motion passes. Thank you guys very much. The pricing workshop is then adjourned. The time is, I think it's 2:29 p.m. We'll now move on to our regular meeting. All right, welcome everybody to the regular board meeting. Mr. Westlake, will you provide the moment of reflection, please?
Good afternoon, President Gross, Commissioners, Mayor Dyer, Clint. As far as I can tell, April is a great month, and today better than most, because it was on this very day many, 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 many years ago that I came to be. So perhaps it's serendipitous that I provide the moment of reflection today. In my lifetime, things had much different meanings than when I was a kid. The last mile delivery meant we received milk from a man in white uniform, right? Text was something you read in a book. Streaming was what a river did when you threw your skipping rocks in. You could leave the house and be off the grid almost immediately until you passed the next phone booth. And having a ride in space was done in a plane with 2 propellers instead of a rocket going to Mars. So April is also arguably, by others, of course, not by me, special for other reasons. It is National Volunteer Month. Our first president, George Washington, was inaugurated on April 30th, 1789. Near and dear to my heart, though, is April 22nd, which is Earth Day, where we honor Mother Earth. My reflection to you, though, is that every day should be an Earth Day. And when I think of Earth Day, I think of my mother. She just passed this year after 105 long years of life. Yes, 105. I was born when she was 80. So, but she was the most consistent and determined conservationist I have ever known. Everything she handled, she thought of its next purpose. A bread bag became a lunch bag. A piece of string could be used many times before it was worn out. A piece of wood, well, you know, who knows? She was an artist, so some of it ended up in art. She is possibly the only person I know who would unknit and reuse the wool. I can only hope to be as consistent as she, but I try my best. I recycle, I compost, and like my mother, I find a second use when I can. So I have 3 challenges for you this month. First, find that second use before you find the trash and stop the single-use plastics in the world. Second, conserve your water. It really is not as plentiful as you think it is. And third, reduce your reliance on fossil fuels. Mother Earth will thank you for it. And if we honor Earth Day in this way, we won't have to work on a planet B. We continue to keep our thoughts with those who are in harm's way in the Ukraine and pray for a peaceful resolution. And lastly, we continue our battle with COVID and look forward to a time when hunker down, social distance, and mask up take on a different meaning than it does today. So as we reflect on the agenda before us, we wish for all of us to have a safe and productive meeting.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'd like to invite Andres Burgos Ortiz here to come forward and lead the Pledge of Allegiance. And while he's making his way up here, let me say that Andres served in the U.S. Marine Corps for 8 years, achieving the rank of E5. He's worked at OUC for over 7 years, and his current title is Business Support Specialist. Please join us, stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
The time is now 2:32, and I call the April 12th, 2022 Commission meeting to order. Our next item on the agenda is the consideration of the March 8th, 2022 Commission meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading of the minutes
So moved.
and adopt them as published.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Commissioner Calvet, any opposed? All right, no, the motion passes. Thank you, guys. We have no service awards, I understand, this month, so we'll proceed with the community recognitions. Ms. Thompson, would you like to present the first community recognition?
Good afternoon, President Gross, Commissioners, Mayor Dyer, and Clint. I have the pleasure today of providing an update on OUC's wellness programs. We are committed here at OUC to prioritizing employee health, wellness, and safety, both physically and mentally. As we work towards our vision to be an innovative solutions partner or leader and partner of choice, developing a safe and healthy, engaged workforce is the key to that success. Next slide, please. So that's why, as part of our Connected 2025 strategic plan, employees is one of 3 major pillars with a focus on strategy to strengthen employee engagement through continuous improvement of our workplace processes and organization. Success factor number 1 for this strategy is defined as safety and health, both physical and psychological, are OUC's way of life. And as you know, our wellness team has worked over the years to develop and enhance a best-in-class employee wellness program that helps each employee reach their health goals while also keeping the workforce engaged. Their work continues to move the needle every year, reducing our medical spend and improving our overall employee health. So today, next slide please, I'm excited to announce that our Wellbeing, the Power to Thrive program has earned a Best Wellness Employer Gold certification from Wellness Workdays for the 5th consecutive year. Next slide. This year, we are one of 13 organizations nationwide to receive GOAT status. OUC received the highest ranking in all 4 categories. The first is assessment, which includes the initial data gathering and analysis of our workplace health through on-site health screenings, health risk assessments, review of our medical claim report, and pulse surveys via the OUC's wellness portal. The second category, which is strategy, uses assessment information to develop programs for the year to address chronic diseases where we can make an impact. The third category, and that's when employees are engaged, is implementation, and that's when our employees are engaged in a range of virtual and on-site health activities. Often we leverage subject matter experts for different employee education efforts, including personal trainers, dietitian, and guest lecturers. And finally, the evaluation category is using post-event surveys and year-over-year review to continuously improve the program. We scored nearly, perfect in 2 of those 4 categories: corporate wellness assessment and wellness program strategy. The certification comes in partnership with Harvard Medical School and serves 2 important goals: to recognize achievement in corporate wellness and to contribute to Harvard Medical School's research. Not only does the rigorous evaluation standards applied give health and wellness programs credibility, but it also validates investments in wellness and recognize that our initiatives are part of an overall corporate plan for a productive, top-performing workplace. Our program is rather robust, and it includes a wealth of educational programming, incentives for our employees and participants, and activities to help our employees on their wellness journey. Each year, the team plan health and wellness fairs, on-site activities and screenings. We conduct health coaching as well as social events. And we look forward to hosting more of our in-person experiences this year, including bringing back some of the on-site nutrition tables. Next slide, please. You can see a few examples of the activities here featured on the screen. I'm incredibly proud of 2 of my colleagues that really lead this effort: Jill Rainford, Wellness Program Manager. Jill, will you please stand? And Allison Roy, Wellbeing Specialist, both standing here in the back, or there you go, Allison, here in the front. I want to thank you for the amazing work that you do, and your dedication to this program is greatly appreciated. Thank you. A huge thank you also goes out to 68 wellness champions that are spread throughout our commission. They truly help deliver the message of wellness throughout their teams and their departments. And they represent every single office of the commission, and that is really a key to our success. And of course, thank you to all of the employees who participate in our well-being program. We could not achieve this recognition without your engagement. So together, we thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Ms. Thompson. All right, I think we're moving on to a water proclamation for the month. So it's my pleasure to read this out loud and put it into the formal record for the meeting here. Proclamation: April is Water Conservation Month. Whereas clean, safe, and sustainable water resources and supplies are vital to the City of Orlando and Orange County economy, the environment, and our citizens. And whereas the state of Florida, its water management districts, and the Orlando Utilities Commission are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation. And whereas the Orlando Utilities Commission and the state of Florida have designated April, typically a dry month when water demands are most acute, as Water Conservation Month to educate citizens about saving precious water resources. And whereas the Orlando Utilities Commission will continue to encourage customers, employees, and community to practice conservation through numerous communication channels. And whereas the Orlando Utilities Commission is committed to educating our community and promoting water conservation in order to help Orlando maintain our status as the greenest city in the Southeast. And whereas the Orlando Utilities Commission will strive to continue providing reliable water service, as demonstrated by being named the nation's highest-ranked mid-size water utility for J.D. Power's 2021 Water Utility Residential Customer Satisfaction Study. And whereas every business, Industry, school, and citizen can make a difference when it comes to saving water, as demonstrated in 2021, when liquid oxygen supplies used to disinfect our water were diverted to hospitals to help COVID-19 patients. And now, therefore, the Orlando Utilities Commission does hereby proclaim the month of April as Water Conservation Month in the Orlando Utilities Commission service territory, which includes the city of Orlando and portions of unincorporated Orange County, and urges all residents and businesses to help protect our precious resources by practicing water-saving measures. Dated this 12th day of April, 2022. Thank you. All right. I think we're settled with the community recognitions. We're going to move now to the affirmative items portion of the agenda. Mr. Bullock, do we, before we consider the affirmative items, do we have any requests from the public to speak on any affirmative items?
We do not, President Gross.
All right. So do we have any comments or presentations that you'd like to cover?
Thank you, President Gross. I do have one I would like to share with the commissioners here today. It's affirmative item A18. I'm going to ask Lisa Kern to come up, our Director of Marketing and Community Engagement. This is such a great partnership. I mean, we talk about, in our strategic plan, we talk about community, we talk about partnerships, and this really is a great story with the Orlando Science Center and the opportunity to work with fifth graders that are so impressionable in Orange and Osceola County and tell our story about conservation. It's an important part of our mission. And so I've asked Lisa here to give an overview. We haven't talked with the commission about this in a while. To give an overview of the program, how it works, how many individuals we touch, and how successful the program has been today. So Lisa.
Yes, thank you, Clint. President Gross, Commissioners, Mayor Dyer and Clint, thank you so much. I'm excited to provide an update. Last time I was up here was 2019, and a lot has changed, obviously, in the world and also with our school system. So I just want to go over that. Next slide, please, Francis. So since 2009, OUC and Orlando Science Center have been partnering together to provide an educational outreach program. And it's really at the core of it, STEM curriculum. It allows us to provide design-based challenges that challenge our students and encourage them to look at the career in STEM as well. And it stands for Alternative Water, Energy Supply, Observation, Methods, and Education. Simply, it truly is just awesome. Next slide. So the goal of the program is to reach every fifth grader within OUC's service territory. That's Orange and Osceola County. And in 2019, we set out to reach more than 10,000 of those students every year annually. And how do we go about doing that? It's 2 90-minute sessions that are done in each semester of the school year. So in the fall, we focus on renewable energy and the importance of energy efficiency. And then in the spring, we focus on water efficiency and alternative sources of water for growing communities. And then in each session, the students are taught a lesson and provided content on both of those areas of focus. Then they have the opportunity to design an activity and a challenge. And that for the fall is create a green roof. For the fall is a fair ride that is run solely on solar power. And then the spring is to create a green roof for an apartment building. So they're given a budget, they're given supplies, and they have to work together collaboratively to build this activity. And then they provide insights and they showcase it to their other colleagues and provide feedback and answer questions. They're able to take that home to their parents too and explain to them what they learned and also provide conservation tips on for energy and water efficiency. Next slide. So as we all know, the pandemic hit. And in 2020, March of 2020, school shut down and everyone went home, and Project Awesome had to pivot. We had to go virtual. We had to quickly adapt our programming to a format that would be resourceful to our teachers, students, and their families. And we put together the OUC at-home programming. This consisted of lesson plans and pre-recorded sessions that teachers could have at their disposal and provide on demand when they needed them. As you know, they were dealing with launch ed and technology and just so many things happening at the same time. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a resource for them that they could use activities and home materials in their home to do these activities, as well as discussion topics, questions, web browser activities, so it was an easy and convenient resource for them. Try the next one. Next slide. This is an example of that at-home programming. And then in the following school year, at the beginning of August of 2020, we elevated our game. We incorporated a modeling and simulation software called CoSpaces. And that way students were able to go on virtually and create their own 2D rendering with other students. And they were able to do that in teams on WebEx. All they needed was a computer and internet connection. The facilitators, the Orlando Science Center, the facilitators were able to come in and come into the breakout rooms and help them answer any questions they have. And then they were able to showcase those virtually with all their different classmates, whether they're in their own homes. So they took away the burden of having actual physical supplies and tasking caregivers with being hands-on. It was a complete virtual interactive environment. Also, just to note too, it allowed us to incorporate computer science, which was another discipline that really allowed students to be exposed to that career field. So that was a huge plus of having that modeling simulation software. So I just love this slide. It really tells the story of the impact of Project Awesome. Since inception, we've been able to reach over 100,000 fifth grade students. I mean, it's quite a feat. And then within the last 3 years, and even in the wake of the pandemic, we've been able to reach over 24,000 students. We are still seeing increased absences, and we're trying as much as we can to get into schools with testing schedules and also other barriers. Project Awesome, Orlando Science Center staff is committed to making sure that we are flexible throughout the whole way to making sure we reach every fifth grade student. Next slide. So while it's just as important to reach as many students as possible, it's just as important to make sure the student and teacher experience is one that's beneficial. So after every session, we make sure to provide a survey and evaluate the overall program. And we ask a series of questions to each of the teachers. And I'm happy to say that we get a 99% response rate. And then we average out of a 10-point scale at 9.72. And that is on par with what we've seen in the past. And it just speaks volumes that the teachers really value this. And this feedback is really critical to us on being able to evaluate what we're doing. Next slide. And here are some verbatims from teachers in different schools in Orange and Osceola County. And what I like about this is it shows that they're appreciative that we've been innovative, that we didn't stop, that in the face of a challenge that we made sure we could pivot, and they appreciated that. And it helped them. It was another resource. It wasn't another challenge that they were facing. So here are some of them. Love this program. Glad we have the opportunity to do this. This is awesome. Love that they call it awesome. So this is just some examples of that, and we have hundreds more. Next slide. So with that, I'll ask for approval of a change order for the Orlando Science Center to continue this great program, this awesome program, in the amount of $484,450. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have.
Questions?
No, this is an awesome program.
You said it best, Commissioner
And
Bill.
thank you for what you and your team are doing. It's fantastic.
Of course. Thank you.
Great. I mean, if OUC is not going to talk about STEM, who else is?
Right?
Exactly.
All right. Okay, I'm going to check in one more time. Are there any members of the public that wish to speak about the affirmative items? All right, doesn't look like it. All right. Given that, before we vote on the affirmative items, are there any comments or questions here from the commissioners?
No.
Commissioner Calvert, do you have any questions or comments about the affirmative items?
Yeah, no, ma'am.
Okay.
Move approval.
All right. Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. And opposed? None. Motion passes. All right. I also understand there's no new business moving forward in the agenda here, so we'll move on to presentations. Commissioner Mills, will you please provide the Audit Finance Committee report?
Yes, ma'am. On April 5th of this year, the Audit Finance Committee conducted its first consolidated meeting in person and virtual via WebEx. The committee reviewed the updated and combined Audit Finance Committee charter. We had an update of the proposed pricing workshop, which was presented to us, as you saw it today, including the rebalancing, if you will, of fuel reserves in advance of the April 12th pricing workshop. We had a quarterly financial and compliance report provided by management. including internal audit, strategic sourcing, procurement operating procedure update. We also had a report from the Energy Risk Management, Treasury Services, Accounting, and Budgeting Services. Quite a bit of reporting, and all very interesting and informative to the committee members. So the committee voted to recommend commission approval of the following action items. First, adoption of the new Audit Finance Committee charter. And second, regulatory action to reclassify residual funds in the Clean Power Fuel Reserve to the traditional fuel reserve. That concludes the report.
Perfect, thank you. All right, we're going to need to take these separately. Can I hear a motion to adopt presentation 1A, which is the Audit Finance Committee Charter?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the Audit Finance Committee Charter. That's presentation 1A. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, sorry. Opposed? None? Motion passes, thank you. And for the second item, the regulatory action reclassification of the fuel reserves, is there a motion to
So
approve
moved.
presentation 1B?
So moved.
We have a motion? Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? None? Motion passes. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
All right, financial report. Ms. Brene, do you want to present the financial report, please?
Happy to. Good afternoon, Commissioners, President Gross, Mayor Clint. I am here to give you the updated financial report. These are draft financials. We have provided you today with a little bit of a different look. We've provided, as it is the 6-month period of our fiscal year, we're providing both the revenue and expenses, but again, these are draft financials. They are not finalized yet. So on the first slide, we're sharing with you the revenues consistent with what we've shared the last few months. We are seeing strong customer growth, and that is what is driving the top line on electric retail and water revenues. In the month of March, we started to really see the impact of commercial operations returning to normal. And so what you see is here, again, more forward movement on the electric side, as well as forward movement on chilled water, all driven by commercial operations, returning to alignment with where we thought they were going to be in the budget. In total, we're about $8.8 million favorable on the revenue line. And on the next slide, I'll share with you the allocation of those favorable revenues. We are on track for just slightly ahead of the planned budgeted net income before contributions. Again, we are looking forward into what we see as the heaviest part of the year, the most volatile part of the year when we hit storm season and the summer months. So we like to move forward into those, if possible, move in with a little bit of extra room should we incur a storm or a more volatile summer weather period. So moving on to the second slide, Francis will show you here that, again, we were favorable 8.8 on revenue. Right now, we are unfavorable on expenses to budget of about $6.6 million, leaving just a slight favorable net income variance of about $2.8 million. What is driving operating expenses are some changes that we've had related to acceleration of depreciation to align with the clean energy plan. We also have experienced some impacts from rising interest rates. Many of you are familiar with the Fed has raised interest rates. We do anticipate further increases in the interest rates. We have some variable debt that has been impacted. And then on the investment side, we needed to take some rebalancing of the portfolio as future interest rates are really rising. On the generation decommissioning, this is all about MAC 3. We have recognized $6.2 million. Right now, the budget is set at $4.5. We continue to discuss the cost related to the actual closure costs with the city of Lakeland. We do have about 1.7 million deferred on the balance sheet to offset these, but we're still tweaking and they are going through their final stages of evaluating the cost to close the plant. It is closed. There are no normal operating revenues occurring with the MAC 3 plant. These are all related to the closure and the full-on decommissioning of the plants. So I don't have anything else to add, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. These are the March financials. Financials that are the quarterly financials are reported to the rating agencies as well.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
No, looks good.
Thank you.
Sounds very good. Thank you. All right, Mr. Browder, do we have any legal issues to report today?
No, that's fine.
Thank you. All right, back to Mr. Bullock. Do we have any members of the public that wish to address the board today?
We do not.
All right, thank you. So we'll move forward, I guess, to the general manager's comments.
Yes, thank you, President Gross. I do have a presentation. Would like to give a legislative update to the board. We've got two presenters here today. Kevin Newton's going to get us started off. He's our Director of Legislative Affairs. He's going to give you an overview of the activity that has occurred at the state level. And then Terry Torrance, our Senior Legislative Representative, will give you an overview of some of the activity that's going on at the federal level. So, Kevin, Terry?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner Gross, Mayor Dyer, Commissioners. Clint, appreciate the opportunity to let you kind of know what's going on, as Clint said, at the state level. If we could move to the next slide, we'll kind of get started. The legislative session wrapped up not too long ago in Tallahassee. They went a few extra days this year as they had to nail down the largest state budget in history. Almost 3,700 bills were introduced this year, and 285 made it past the finish line, about 7.5%. It's still very tough to get a bill passed in Tallahassee. And, you know, we were pretty lucky. We had something that we were behind and pushing real hard, and I'll mention that a little bit later. So far, 66 of those bills have passed, and one was vetoed. The one that was vetoed spurred a special session that will start next week, and that is the congressional redistricting process that the state must go through every 10 years. There's some controversy on what that map should look like, and they're going to get together next week to try to make sure they get those congressional boundaries set so folks can qualify for their districts and they can move towards those midterm elections coming up in November. On the state budget side, largest state budget ever in history, a little over $112 billion. Last year, it was a little over $101 billion. A lot of those extra funds came from Washington in the form of relief through the various programs coming down through COVID and infrastructure. And also a rebounding Florida economy that's done much better than many anticipated also put some extra funds in the state coffer. So the governor has not received the budget yet. When he does, he'll have 15 days to act on it. And as most folks know, he does have the red pen there that he can use as a line item veto. So he can go through and scratch some things out of that state budget. So hopefully that won't be anything that affects us here in Central Florida. Go to the next slide. So what happened up in Tallahassee this year? It was contentious on a number of fronts. A lot of kind of what they called culture war issues. I'm sure you heard about a lot of these in the news, dominated predominantly by election year politics. So there were a lot of, very sensitive issues that took place up there. Immigration, laws related to, what can be taught in classrooms and shared with employees in the workplace, as well as, discussion on certain issues with young students. I'm sure you've all read the headlines and know what's going on there. But some of the critical things are some of the things that weren't addressed this year. As most of you know, the state of Florida is in a property insurance crisis right now. If you haven't received your property insurance bill, a lot of folks are seeing them go up, or their insurers have become insolvent, or they're not writing new policies anymore. It's gotten very expensive to write property insurance in Florida. And this has a lot to do with the litigious nature of the state, and also some of the supply chain issues that you heard mentioned earlier. It is just hard to get, roofing materials, lumber, car parts, you name it. All of those are working to drive up those property costs. There could be a special session on that coming later this year, as well as on something that I thought a lot of folks would see happen this year was condominium safety reform in light of the Surfside tragedy down in South Florida with the condo collapse. Most folks thought that there would be some new rules, inspections, safety requirements put into place. Surprisingly, that did not happen. And again, they might be back later this year to discuss that issue as well. We can go to the next slide. So some key issues that passed, a couple I'm going to come back to, which is the cybersecurity, public record and meeting exemption, and net metering. I'll come back and touch on those. Floating solar was something we were following, and as a utility that has a couple of floating solar arrays in our service territory, what's happened is has passed the legislature and will go to the governor, hopefully to be signed, that will make that a permitted land use in cities and counties throughout the state. So if a city or county has not already adjusted their land development code to make that a permissible use, they'll have to do so in the future. And we were following the tax package as well. There's some things in there that are important to our customers, some sales tax breaks. For disaster supplies prior to the start of the hurricane season, and also for Energy Star appliances. We haven't seen that one back in the sales tax holiday column for a while. And what's interesting about that one is instead of lasting a couple weeks, that sales tax break will last the entire year. So hopefully that'll help some of our customers upgrade some of their appliances. None of these bills have been sent to the governor yet, so we're still waiting to see what happens on those. Hopefully we'll get good news when they are sent to his desk. And to the next slide. Some other things that didn't pass, some we would have liked to have seen some action on, like electric vehicles and charging stations. Unfortunately, there was no traction there this year, and nothing moved forward. We're pretty happy that there weren't any major changes made to the sovereign immunity laws that impact cities, counties, and other government agencies. It puts caps on the amount that they might have to pay in a lawsuit. They're currently set at $200,000 and $300,000. They could have gone up to $1 million and $3 million, which could have really had a big impact on a number of cities, counties, school districts, and things like that. So we're glad that didn't go anywhere. We thought there might be some changes to PACE programs, some consumer protections put in there. It started moving along, but it did not make it all the way. There were no pole attachment bills that made it through this year. So in previous years, I've been up here letting you know about what's been going on with broadband providers and telecom companies trying to do their best to make sure they had access to our poles, which they do, and we make available to them. Nothing happened there this year, although they tried again. But they did manage, with some of that federal money, to put some dollars in the budget for broadband opportunity expansion grants. So those providers can take some broadband to under and non-served areas of the state. There was another, thing that I'm sure the city was following very closely that would have, prevented cities and counties from receiving funds from the state if they received general transfers from their utilities that went to their general funds. Didn't move anywhere, thank goodness. So hopefully we won't see that back again next year. So if we can move to the next slide. So these are the two issues I really wanted to touch on. The public records and meetings exemption, that was House Bill 7057. It was all related to cybersecurity. Currently now, there are some narrow public records and meetings exclusions for things related to cybersecurity, and they're kind of individually in the law for cities and counties, and we even have something in there for municipal electric utilities. This is a much broader law. If approved by the governor, it will keep some things private that really belong, inside the utility and not shared with the public. That includes information related to our insurance policies and deductibles and coverage limits for cybersecurity policies. And probably the most important thing that was in this bill this year is there's a definition inside the bill for critical infrastructure, which is very broad and defines it as information and operational technology systems. So not only the computers that control things here, but also the computers that control our water and electric systems in the field, whether physical or virtual, that if they are harmed in any way, could have a negative impact on our customers. So with that broad definition of critical infrastructure, it really gives us the blanket protection we need to make sure we can discuss those issues and how we protect those systems in private. The bill also creates that to go along with the records, a public meeting exemption. So when you or internal staff discuss those issues on how we're protecting ourselves from cyber threats, that can also be done in private. And if we could move to the next slide. This is the last one I'm going to discuss before I turn it over. This was a pretty contentious bill, and it was very interesting to be in Tallahassee as this was all going down. Had to do with net metering, which was House Bill 741. The important thing to know is that this bill does not affect OUC. It only affects the investor-owned utilities, not municipals or co-ops. So what did this bill do that went all over the place and was, went from one extreme to the other? They sort of landed in the middle. What happens is that the current net metering rules are in place through 2023. That means existing customers, and this I'm speaking in for investor-owned utilities, and we happen to mirror what they're doing right now. They receive a 100% retail credit for any energy they put back on the grid. Now, starting in 2024, there's a step-down period that runs through 2028 where that credit is reduced, you can see, over time to it's a 50% credit for energy put back onto the grid through 2028. By 2029, the Public Service Commission has to have an entire new set of net metering rules in place that don't allow any type of cross-subsidization, and that was the big issue in Tallahassee. No one was willing to step up and say no one had good numbers on what cross-subsidization was, looked like, or how it was. So there's going to be some time to study this in the future. When those new rules are put in place, utilities will only pay their avoided cost for any energy put back onto the grid at that time. I say you saw the step down time frame from 2024 to 2028. That goes away if by chance an investor-owned utility happens to have a 6.5% penetration rate of solar in their service territory. That would advance that schedule and the new rules would come into place sooner. So the good news, I think, for customers on the IOU side is that between now and when the new rules go in place, when you sign your interconnection agreement with the utility, you're grandfathered in for 20 years at whatever that rate was. So for example, if I signed an interconnection agreement in 2026, I would be guaranteed 50% of the retail rate as my credit back to me for 20 years. So that's the way that worked out.
Kevin, how did they pick 6.5%? Random?
Random. They really pulled it. I mean, that question was asked and no one had a good answer. No one had a good answer. So, and there's debate on whether or not the certain utilities are close to that, and they even have the definition there that it's basically all the renewable generation in that IOU's territory divided by their peak summer load. So I think we're going to see, a lot of different math from the utilities on what that actually, and the interveners and the solar folks. I mean, this was a pretty contentious issue with a lot of testimony up in Tallahassee. The utilities can come back and ask for additional fees starting in 2024. They're the ones claiming that there's a lot of subsidization going on out there, so they'll have their shot to go before the Public Service Commission. And as I mentioned at the start, this really deals with the investor-owned utilities. As a municipal, I mean, we're watching how this is going to affect the stakeholders throughout the state, both customers, the environmental groups, the solar installers, and see what happens. We're reviewing our own internal solar offerings now, and we're going to move forward and make good decisions, for OUC and our customers. We want to make sure that we can meet the clean energy goals that we've all subscribed to, to be net zero by 2050. And we want to make sure that we're also offering the products and services and meet the demands of our customers as well. So we're in a bit of a wait and see on our side, see how some of this plays out. Again, this bill hasn't been sent to the governor, but it's highly likely that he will sign this one. So, and if you had any questions, I can try taking those now, or I can turn it over to Terry and we can do those at the end. Okay.
Terry?
Very good, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Terry Torrens. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a federal briefing. Since I was just here in December, I don't have near as much excitement to share with you as Kevin did, so that could be good news because that means I'll be brief. Next slide, please. Probably one of the big things we just want to call attention to is it looks like cybersecurity is the subject of the order both in Tallahassee and in Washington. Recently, this act was just passed, the Cyber Incident Reporting for Critical Infrastructure Act of 2022. What that basically does is it lays out the initial framework for what will happen next, which is the rulemaking. So rulemaking will set forth the actual granularity of what it really looks like over time, really define what is a covered entity, what is critical infrastructure, and set really the parameters up for what does that really look like. So the rulemaking will be the next step in the process. It'll be done by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, which is CISA. Probably we'll see something in the next 24 months. OUC will have the opportunity to be an intervener. We can intervene through American Public Power Association or large public power. We can also intervene individually as a commission, although we don't typically do that. So we do have a voice in the process, but we should be seeing some rulemaking coming out about that in the next 24 months. Next slide. And just a little bit of high-level activity that's going on. As you guys all know, we now have a new Supreme Court justice. Her name is Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she's confirmed by the Senate, and she is now a justice in waiting. So she will wait a little bit, and then she will get on the bench, and she will get to be our most recent Supreme Court nominee. There's also conversation going on in Washington about additional COVID funding. But as a reminder, it is an election year, and during election years, not a lot of things get going or get a lot of traction. So we'll find a lot of our members back in their districts campaigning and doing other things. The discussion about the COVID funding that we're hearing on the Hill is about $10 billion. That's the number that's being bandied about. I really don't have a lot of detail about where and when, but we do know that that there's been discussion. However, the Senate is now in recess, and so we're on hold on that. So I can bring back more information about that in the future. And then one other thing that I really wanted to highlight for you is something called the America Competes Act. And it has quite a few things inside of that bill, but it has a lot to do with strengthening domestic manufacturing. Why is this is important is because both the House and the Senate have seen bills, although they're not identical bills, be successful, get through the House and the Senate, which means you've got an appetite from both sides of the aisle. Although the bills aren't identical, they'll have to go into reconciliation to get a bill that can actually ultimately go to the president's desk. But this is promising, and so this, in all likelihood, we'll see this thing get across the finish line. Really important to note about this particular bill is our own Rep. Val Demings has her Solar Supply Chain Act in there, which is designed to prop up domestic manufacturing of solar panels here in the U.S., which helps us with our supply chain issues. And then one really last item that I just wanted to talk about is the Build Back Better plan. As we know, it's in its current form, it really hasn't gotten anywhere in terms of traction, but we are hearing from both the House and the Senate that their sections, or what they're referring to as chunks of the Build Back Better, that both sides of the aisle and both chambers, including the White House, are favorable in. And so I think what we might see coming out of the Build Back Better is some portions of it. I think that there's some tax and finance stuff that I think might be brought forward, which seems to be favorable, which will be beneficial to OUC in the long run. So we may see some of that, but again, there's disagreement within the caucuses of trying to get the in its entirety. So hopefully we'll see some, some portions that are valuable and that can provide benefits to OUC come from that. And then one last slide, please. And this is just an overall look at some of the engagement that we do on the federal level. These are some of the task forces and working groups that myself and other members of OUC staff that sit on at the national level. And this is just two organizations, the bigger ones, the American Public Power and Large Public Power Council. But there's quite a few other organizations that OUC is actually engaged at on a federal level. So we are very well represented, both receiving and sharing information at the national level. And with that, if you have any questions, I'll answer them now.
Questions, comments?
All right.
No, thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Always interesting.
Thanks for having us.
Kevin and Terry. Commissioner, I have one last item to share, and based on popular demand, next month's board meeting, you'll see the Employee Service Awards coming back. So we're at a spot now where we include that as part of our normal format. So we're excited about that. You'll see a couple executives here next month, and we'll be celebrating years of service by some of our employees. So looking forward to that. I have no further comments.
All right. Commissioner comments. Commissioner Calvet, do you have any comments closing out this meeting today?
Well, like I said, I was very pleased with the pricing workshop. It was very clear, very detailed. So one of those unfortunate things that happens every so often. And the only other item will be that very pleased that the Employee Service Awards are coming back next month.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Mills?
I echo the pricing workshop, having seen it in the audit finance meeting. I think it's a tough story, but a good one. And so I'm appreciative of your efforts in that. I want to commend you on the wellness program, and particularly not mentioned in many wellness programs is the mental health and the wholeness of the employee, particularly in stressful times. So I commend you guys on that, as well as the outreach to our students. I think that's very, very good. Always enjoy the legislative briefings, and so great meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you. Mayor?
I guess I could just say ditto, because I have the same three basically. But thank you for the pricing workshop on the pass-through for our power. I think it's really important. It's a necessity. We all agree we have to do this. I think it was pretty well explained on why we have to do that, but it's really important that we inform our customers and the public exactly why we're increasing their bills in June. So, and I think that went a long way toward doing that. And I thought, Kevin, I don't know if you were listening out there, Kevin, your article in the Sentinel was pretty even-handed and fair in the explanation. Great focus on employee wellness. We do that at the city as well, so I definitely appreciate that. And then the awesome program. So same thing.
Oh, I hate to be redundant, but this was a very efficient meeting. So we raced through stuff. I guess, hey, thank you for keeping your eye on floating solar legislatively. Also, what's going on in the state, I know that could be a huge opportunity for us down here. Even the Energy Star program, I wasn't aware of that one. That's great. Love the legislative updates always. The Science Center program, of course, almost goes without saying. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that. And if there are no objections, I'd like to join the meeting today at 3. Is that really safe? 19? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a
Very
record.
good. Adjourned. Thank you.
All right.
Oh my God, that's awesome.